Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for joining the Oregon Employment Department for our weekly media briefing. A couple of quick reminders before we get started. This call is being recorded. We will send it out to everybody who is RSVP'd after the briefing. You will be called upon to ask your questions in the order you RSVP'd to the event. Please limit yourself to one question and one follow-up question. If you're joining us by phone only, to unmute, you'll have to hit *6. If anybody is experiencing technical difficulties or is unable to get your question in, please send us an email, oed_communications@oregon.gov. I'd now like to turn it over to David Gerstenfeld, Acting Director of the Oregon Employment Department.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for joining me this afternoon. We do have a number of big items to talk about this week, and it's good to be able to have some good news to share again as Thanksgiving approaches. So I want to start out talking about the waiting week. We had hoped to start paying the waiting week to people that were eligible for that by the end of this month. And we announced on Monday that we started paying the waiting week benefits 1 week ahead of schedule. And I want to thank our IT and unemployment insurance teams for making this enormous event happen. That was a huge amount of work for them. This week, we started by paying just under 250,000 people, a combined total of about $176 million in benefits in the initial run of paying people for the waiting week. That included the underlying regular unemployment insurance benefit, as well as the additional FPUC and lost wages assistance payments that went along to people whose waiting week was during the time periods covered by those programs. On Monday, we estimated that payments for about another 170,000 people would take longer because they had to be manually processed. We've also experienced some intermittent mainframe and other technology issues in the past week or so, but we do anticipate getting through those 170,000 manual payments in the weeks to come. We've done some additional automation that already paid out about another 60,000 of those weeks, waiting weeks to people, and we are making progress working through the ones that will continue to need manual work. For people who are receiving PEUC, extended benefits, or work share, we hope to process the remaining waiting week payments by the end of December, but it may take us until January to get some of those paid out. We're doing our very best to get them paid as quickly as possible, to get the money into people's hands as quickly as we can, and to avoid the possibility of losing some amount of federal reimbursement for waiting week payments that are issued after January 1st of 2021. The time period that the waiting week is waived for is March 8th through January 2nd. So anybody who files an eligible new claim for benefits and a weekly benefit for regular unemployment insurance during that time period will be paid for that first week that they're eligible. The waiting week does not add any more benefits to a claim, though. So people still just receive 26 weeks of regular unemployment insurance benefits. And people who are receiving PUA or DUA benefits won't get a waiting week payment because those people were already paid for the first week in their claim. Those programs didn't have a waiting week. For more detailed information about the waiting week, please search for waiting week on our unemployment.oregon.gov website. We've put a bunch of information there. For most people that receive PEUC, one of the benefit extensions, if they used up that extension, extended benefits, or EB, is another safety net program that would help them make ends meet. Once their regular unemployment insurance claim was exhausted, extended benefits typically provides up to 13 weeks of additional benefits. If the unemployment rate is high enough, that EB program is extended with what's called high extended benefits, or HEB, which changes the up to 13 weeks of additional benefits to instead be up to 20 weeks. So it just provides the same program, but for an additional period of time. The federal government notifies states when extended benefits and high extended benefits programs start and stop based on a formula that looks at unemployment rates. Because of the pandemic and the very high unemployment rate Oregon has been experiencing, we have been in a HEB, or high extended benefits, period. Now that our unemployment rate is declining, even though it's still high, we did receive notice from the federal government that the HEB program will stop. This means that the benefit extension will reduce from being up to 20 weeks to providing up to 13 weeks of benefits. This doesn't happen immediately. The 13-week limit for extended benefits goes back into effect for the week ending December 12th. We will be adding detailed information to our website, and we'll be sharing that information with direct communications to people who are receiving extended benefits, and we'll also be sharing more information over social media about this. For now, the important thing to know is that people will continue to receive their extended benefits through the week ending December 12th, even if it's even if it's more than the 13-week limit of extended benefits. So up through that date, we're still operating under the program that provides up to 20 weeks of benefits. The following week is when people may see benefits end if they've already received 13 weeks of extended benefits. We've talked in the past about seeing an increase in claims as a result of the freeze, and we are seeing that now. We're seeing an increase in restarted claims and new initial claims for benefits. For both regular unemployment and pandemic unemployment assistance, we've seen about double the number of new claims since last week, and an even larger jump in what we call additional claims over the past few days. An additional claim is from somebody who had previously filed a claim in the past year, had stopped getting benefits because they had a job, and then again became unemployed, so resumed seeking benefits. These numbers are consistent with what we projected last week of anticipating up to about 51,000 jobs that could be impacted by the freeze. Most people can restart their claim themselves online, and we encourage people to do that. Within a couple of business days, automation that we have put in place during the pandemic will allow them to just resume making their weekly claim filings as they have been. For people needing to restart a regular unemployment insurance claim, they can go to the online claim system and select the Restart Your Claim button, which is the 8th one down. For people needing to restart a PUA claim, they can just resume making their weekly PUA claims using the online claim system, and our automation will automatically take care of restarting most of those PUA claims. If for some reason somebody gets a message saying that they cannot restart their claim online, or if they do and things are not resolved within 5 business days, they should use the Contact Us form and select Restarting My Claim option to let us know what the issue is that they're having. For more information about restarting claims or moving from one benefit program to another, you can click on the information box at the top of our unemployment.oregon.gov website. For people who are filing a claim for the first time, they can take the eligibility quiz there to help determine what benefit program they're likely eligible for. And for any questions, we encourage people to search our regularly updated website and remind people that the best way to get in touch with us is to use the Contact Us form. So after paying the waiting week, the Employment Department has now paid out about $6 billion in benefits in the past 8 months. That's about what we paid out in the prior decade. This highlights the great need for these vital benefits right now. More Oregonians are relying on unemployment benefits and for longer periods of time than they ever have in the past. With COVID-19 continuing to spread, now is not the time to stop these benefits. Unfortunately, about 70,000 people receiving PUA, PEUC, and other benefits are set to lose these benefits at the end of the year with the expiration of the CARES Act. And now, with the new federal determination about extended benefits, some people will be seeing those extended benefits end sooner than they had anticipated. With COVID-19 continuing to spread, this really isn't the time to take those benefits away. Oregonians need continued financial relief, and they need congressional action to allow us to provide that relief. We're expressing that to our federal delegation. We're collaborating with our peer agencies in other states, and we're calling on our elected leaders to help Oregonians and pass legislation that will let us more quickly provide more benefits to people that are still facing the very real hardships of unemployment. If any relief packages are passed, we stand ready to step up and do everything that we can to make sure there are minimal gaps in benefits. Some other news to share is around the holiday schedule. Because of the Thanksgiving holiday, state government is generally closed on November 26th and November 27th. Although the Employment Department will not be taking incoming calls those days, we do have employees working, processing claims, doing adjudication, and doing other work needed to help people get their benefits. Because of the holidays, the benefit payments themselves may be delayed, though, and people may not be able to see their claims online until November 30th. Also wanted to remind people about the deadline to submit an application for disaster unemployment assistance, which is this Friday, November 27th. So far, we've paid out about $220,000 in those DUA benefits to about 139 Oregonians who were impacted by the wildfires. We've helped many, many other people who were harmed by those damaging wildfires using the many other benefit programs that we've been administering this year. Anybody whose employment was impacted by those recent wildfires, who is not eligible for the other benefit programs we offer, and who has not yet applied for DOA, should submit their application right away. Friday is the deadline to do that. And that program is available just for people who are in Clackamas, Douglas, Jackson, Klamath, Lane, Lincoln, Lynn, or Marion counties. We have the application, instructions, and answers to frequently asked questions on our website at oregon.gov/employee/disaster. We have another upcoming webinar about unemployment insurance, which is scheduled for Thursday, December 3rd. The topic of that webinar will be the ending of the CARES Act programs at the end of the year and the reduction in the number of weeks of extended benefits that are available. You can see our past webinars by visiting unemployment.oregon.gov/webinars. We're also continuing to conduct town halls regarding the paid family and medical leave insurance program. The next one is Tuesday, December 8th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And the focus of this one will be on self-employed people and independent contractors who will have the option to elect to participate in the program, including talking about contribution and benefit amounts and how to elect coverage. You can watch a recording of the most recent town hall and register for the next one by visiting oregon.gov/employee/PFMLI and clicking on Town Halls. To provide an update on some numbers, we've been sharing our progress with Focus Adjudication. On September 30th, 2020, we had identified about 52,000 people whose claims needed to be adjudicated, and we committed to working through those as quickly as we could and reporting on our progress. This week, of that 52,000, there's about 19,200 remaining with claims to adjudicate. Our target was to complete all of those focus adjudication claims by the end of the year, and at this point, we remain on track to meet that target. And of course, we're doing everything that we can to try to speed things up even more. I mentioned that we've paid out about $6 billion in benefits. That's from March 15th through November 21st of this year. So during that time period, we've paid out about what we did in the prior decade. The number of claims has increased. In total, between March 15th and November 21st, we've had just under 613,000 new claims for regular unemployment benefits filed. During the same time period last year, it was about 97,000. We currently have about 3,200 new claims for unemployment benefits waiting to be processed. With the increase in claims, we're also doing the manual work to get the waiting week payments out as quickly as possible, and a greatly increased number of calls and contact us inquiries that we're receiving. We do have a lot more new work coming in. We're redeploying our employees daily to get all the work addressed as quickly as we can. The oldest regular unemployment insurance claim for the initial stage of processing is from November 4th, and that's the oldest one. Almost all of the new claims that are being filed are still having that initial processing completed within a week. For pandemic unemployment assistance, we've paid about $357 million to more than 76,000 people. Our WorkShare program continues to see high usage and is actually increasing a little bit now. We have about 1,685 employers using WorkShare, covering over 68,500 workers. I'm happy to be able to share the news about the hard work that people put in and their ability to pay the waiting week to people this week, and to share some good news before the holiday weekend begins. We're doing everything that we can to get benefits out to those who are waiting, and we're not stopping the other work to get through the backlog of claims needing adjudication. We're calling for federal relief. This year's federal benefit programs created a lifeline for Oregonians, and we don't want to see that lifeline pulled too soon. We're calling on our federal elected officials to help Oregonians in need. we stand ready to implement any new or continued benefit programs as quickly as we can and help those who need this critical support right now. And with that, I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, David. I will open up the lines here momentarily and call on the reporters to ask your questions. And a reminder, one question and one follow-up question. If you're unable to get your question in, you can send it in an email to oed_communications@oregon.gov. First up, we have Lindsay Nadrich with COIN.
Hey, David. I had a clarifying question on something you mentioned, and I just want to make sure. So you said 19,200 claims are still outstanding for adjudication. Are there more than that, given the numbers we saw in that legal case, that are being classified a different way, or is that really the number of claims outstanding? And of those, you mentioned something about running out of federal reimbursement. So if people get those benefits after these programs expire, they're still going to get the money that they qualified for, correct? Sorry, that's kind of twofold.
Sure. So I'll answer both of those questions. I'll do the second one first. People's benefits are not at risk. So in terms of the claims that we're adjudicating, that we're working through, if we find that someone is eligible for benefits, whether it's regular state unemployment insurance or if it's one of the federal programs like PUA or PEUC, although we're doing our best to get those resolved as quickly as we can, even if it takes into next year for some of those to be paid, those federal benefits are still there. The only area where there is some risk is around the lost wages assistance, that additional $300 for some weeks. That's kind of a completely different program from all of the other unemployment ones. We drew down enough money based on our projections that we still think that we will have sufficient funds to pay everyone, but that's the only program where there's not the ability to just draw down additional funds if we discover that more people are eligible than anticipated. So the bottom line is nobody is at risk of losing their PUA or PEUC or extended benefits or unemployment insurance based on the timing of when we make that determination. In terms of the numbers of claims, there's a lot of different ways to look at the bodies of work, and the focus adjudication was on September 30th. Absolutely everybody's claim who was in adjudication, either actively being adjudicated or waiting to be adjudicated, and that was about 52,000. And we committed to resolving those by the end of the year. The 19,200 is what is left of that body of work. There are other people that need adjudication because we continue to have claims filed every day, and we continue to identify new issues that require adjudication that the law says we need to look at every day. We have also been working through some of those other issues as they come through, but our focus is getting through all of those that we knew were there as of September 30th, the people that were already waiting, as quickly as we can.
And then real quick, what can you do to communicate better with people who are stuck in adjudication? A lot of people I'm talking to say, like the worst part is the not knowing. Did my claim get lost in the shuffle? Is there any way to even send out like an automated message to people to say, hey, we're still working on this. Here's the estimated time frame, just so people have some piece of communication?
And we are doing more communication. We know that it still isn't enough to give people the peace of mind of knowing where they are and when they can expect a resolution. We can't give the kind of detail that you suggested. We would love to be able to do that, to be able to look at the claim and give an estimate based on what the types of issues are, whether it will need the full adjudication process, and kind of which group of our employees, which of our adjudicators have the training to go through that. It would require diverting the people that can do the adjudication to get those notices out to let people know how long and actually slow down our ability to resolve the cases. We do send out automated notices, but as we've talked about in the past, we know that those don't provide the level of detail or clarity that really gives peace of mind to people. We are making increasing progress, though. So as we get more and more current, people will be hearing from us much sooner. We also are having some of our employees and some contracted employees, people that were contracted through Epic to help us with adjudication, reaching out and getting information on many of those claims preliminarily. So people are hearing from us at a much quicker rate now, and we anticipate that continuing as we progress through the rest of the year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay. Next, we have Sarah Hurwitz with KPTV.
Hello, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Did have two questions. So the first one, a colleague of mine did the story on Monday, kind of talking about some of the particulars around the waiting week. And you said that the IT and unemployment insurance teams have been working incredibly hard to make these programming changes to allow for these payments to actually happen. Can you just give kind of an overview for folks, kind of a full grasp of what that means, how difficult this was to make this happen?
Sure. And I won't do it justice because I don't have the technical skills to actually be able to do most of that work. From the IT side, we're dealing with coding that was done decades ago and that has been continually revised over time as laws have changed, as the ways we interact with the public change. So our systems were built before the internet was being used. So it really is almost a spider web of interconnected systems. And the waiting week was built into the very beginning. So anything that we touch with that waiting week has the potential to have unintended consequences. So they have to program in how to pay people that waiting week without having it do things that we don't want it to. For instance, especially with all the new programs, some people already used up all of their regular benefits and had moved on to an extension program. We don't want to create something that pays people for the waiting week, but triggers some automatic processes that would then stop future payments from going out because other parts of the programs think that the person has now received more benefits than they should have. So it required extensive work, not just doing the programming, but from our program experts in the unemployment insurance area to really understand what all of the different situations that a claim could encounter. And during normal times, there's a lot of different situations where people start and stop claims and have different things go on. With the layers of new programs that have been implemented so frequently recently, it just adds layers and layers of complexity. So that they did an amazing job of doing all of that testing and then identifying which claims would require the manual intervention, getting people trained up so that they're already working and getting through thousands of those.
Wow, that sounds like kind of a revamp almost of certain aspects of the system for sure. My second question had to do, you're talking about federal relief, calling for that as the CARES Act is set to expire here in the beginning of the year. What do you think that should look like then?
Well, there's a lot of policy choices. We still are seeing a huge need for relief for people that have traditionally been covered by our benefit programs. So people that are kind of commonly considered employees that are unemployed or have had their hours cut. And then also the PUA program, which provided that safety net to a whole new group of people who have never before been eligible for benefits nationally under the unemployment system. Some of the key priorities for us are making sure that those benefits continue. Some important criteria to help us keep the benefits going as quickly as possible is not to make a lot of changes. So for instance, the federal pandemic unemployment compensation program, the extra $600 was something that there's been talk about extending or reinstating in some form. We've shared that it is vastly quicker for us to be able to get those benefits into people's hands if it is a flat dollar amount, like $600 or whatever the flat dollar amount is. Some of the policy proposals have talked about a different dollar amount based on the individual person's circumstances, and that unfortunately could add weeks or even months to how long it takes us to be able to pay those. So we really want the benefits to be, any new programs to be created as soon as possible, so that we can start the work needed to get those benefits out, to keep them as similar as possible to the programs that have already been implemented. We're also advocating that Oregon has been a huge user of the WorkShare program, and that has helped, I mentioned thousands of employers and tens of thousands of workers. We really think it's important for that program that lets businesses and employees stay connected to each other to continue and to have the federal government to continue funding the work share benefits during this time to help keep our trust fund solvent and to help limit the impact on any employer taxes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Next, we have Bill Poehler with the Statesman Journal.
Yeah, hey, David. So as far as the waiting week goes, I've heard from quite a few, or from a number of people now that have said that the waiting week benefits that they when they've checked on the website, they're getting less than they were getting for normal weeks, and also that a lot of people have said they haven't received them. Are those coming in? Are they going to be on the Relia card, or are they going to be on, like a typical, mailed out check like they got in the beginning? Just had people wondering about that stuff.
Sure. And it's hard to give one answer because we do have so many different situations going on. For new claims that people are filing, that first payment will be by a physical check, like the first payments always have been. For people that have been waiting to get the waiting week payment, the payment method should be, in almost all cases, the same method that they've been receiving payments recently, whether that is direct deposit or Relia card, or for a small number of people through physical checks. In terms of the dollar amounts, it really will depend on a number of factors. Some people are owed the waiting week, but since then have actually had a new claim or transitioned to a different claim. If they had any earnings during that week, that would impact the amount of net benefits they get. So we've talked before that there have been some changes, but you can get unemployment benefits in a week even if you're working part-time, but sometimes the earnings that you get reduce your weekly benefit payment. So there are a lot of people that were waiting for the waiting week but had some earnings that week. They'll get paid, but the dollar amount might be different.
Okay. And you mentioned the 51,000 or the projected 51,000. Do you know how many of those are new claims and how many of those are continued claims?
We don't. We're watching, and I mentioned that we've seen big spikes of pretty comparable in both the PUA and the regular unemployment insurance program of new claims, where it more than doubled over the past week. In terms of continued claims, we're seeing even bigger spikes of continued claims. So it's hard to give a percentage, but the increase for people that are kind of restarting their claim is more than the new claims that we're receiving. And that's kind of what we had been anticipating because so many people were impacted during the earlier part of the pandemic. It's a lot of people that had been back to work that are needing to restart their claims. One of the good pieces of news is that some of the automation that we've put in place has allowed those restarts to take place much, much quicker and with a lot less staff intervention. So that's making it a lot easier for us to get the benefits resumed for those people.
Awesome. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Bill. And lastly, we have Keaton Thomas with K2.
Hey, David. Thanks for taking the call. I heard from a couple people over the past couple of days related to the waiting week. And I'm wondering if you just might be able to provide an explanation for them. It's a situation where they've been getting benefits and then they, I guess, exhausted the benefits that they've been paid. And so they're upset that they're not getting the waiting week payment and the upsetting part for them might be they're not getting the extra $600. Does that make sense? Because they were, they exhausted everything, so they don't have any money left to maybe get that waiting payment.
Sure. So a couple of things. This does get complicated because there are so many different programs that can be there. We do have some information up on our website to try to help people see, depending on when they got that waiting week credit, whether they would get just their underlying benefit or whether it fell during a time period that the federal government allows us to also pay them the extra $600 or the extra $300. And they can check through the online claim system to see where that waiting week credit was, which will help them identify if they are ultimately eligible for that additional amount. From the beginning, the waiting week the waiting week is really a pause before you can start getting your regular unemployment insurance benefits. So waiving the waiting week means that people can start getting paid for their first week of benefits the first week that they're eligible, but it doesn't increase the amount of benefits that they're able to get on a regular unemployment insurance claim. The situation, and one of the things that makes this complicated and that requires a lot of manual work, is many people have exhausted their regular unemployment insurance, so they've already received 26 weeks worth of regular unemployment insurance, and they've now moved on to one of the extension programs, PEUC. Maybe they've gone through that or are now on extended benefits or even PUA. For people where we are allowed to do it, we are moving them kind of backwards through the claims. So they will still end up getting paid for that first week that they were eligible. And if that first week was during a time period covered by the FPUC program, for example, they will get the $600. Those are among the claims that take a lot more manual work for us to do. And there are some people who have exhausted absolutely all of the benefits under all of the programs that they're eligible for. And for them, unfortunately, it does mean that they won't be receiving any additional payment because they've already exhausted all of the money that's available to them under all of the benefit programs.
And then just so for clarification, I think as you said, just so I can go back and explain to them, they've basically then been paid the amount of money that they ultimately would have been paid is just kind of a different timing in a situation where they might have exhausted the benefits. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay. But the other follow-up question I had just real quick is just real quickly, what's your message to folks, or what would you recommend them do in terms of how to prepare should there be a lapse in benefits after December 26th, people on PEUC or PUA?
Yeah, and the advice is really the same whether there ultimately is a new federal program or not. We're encouraging people to plan now. Again, we can't create new programs. We're anxious to give benefits to people as quickly as we can and to help people as much as we can. There are still businesses that are hiring, and even with the freeze, we're seeing a number of businesses that are actively looking, and in some cases are having difficulty finding workers. So our WorkSource centers are still operating virtually, and they are standing by. They want to help people find jobs. So we're encouraging people to contact them so that we can help people find employment, so that if there are no benefit programs, they're able to be in a much better situation.
Thank you.
Any chance I could ask a follow-up to Keaton's just to clarify? I want to make sure I understood what you said correctly. Sorry. So for the waiting week, so people won't get maybe that week of benefits because they were already paid it, but if they're eligible for the federal benefit, they would still get that money for the waiting week?
So I'm trying to make sure I understand the question, and I'm not sure that I do. The federal benefit, if you're talking about either the extra $600 or extra $300, that only applies if you end up getting paid for a week that was covered by one of those programs. For some people, we are essentially shifting them backwards through the programs. So some people may not end up getting a new underlying benefit payment if they've already received them all. But if it changes the week that they were eligible to get paid for, from being, for instance, if somebody's waiting week was during the time period covered by FPUC, and they later received their last week of benefits in a week that wasn't, then they could end up getting an additional $600 payment, but not an additional underlying week of benefits because they already received all of their original unemployment insurance benefits. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, that's exactly what I wanted. Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today. We will work to get this recording out to you as quickly as we can this afternoon. If you have any additional questions, please send us an email, oed_communications@oregon.gov. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone.